Whoa.
落ち着いて。俺は君と話がしたい。とにかく話を聞いてくれ。そして君も話してくれ。
Oh, I just got chills. Woo. Ah. Here it comes.
金の髪西から来たのか。
どれ埋葬だけでもしてやるか。
Hold on, my friend.
生きてるよ。嘘だろ。しっかりしろ。おい、大丈夫か。水だ。水は持ってこい。
The Eastern Sage.
少しずつだ。どこに行くつもりだったんだ。
帰るところがない。行くところもない。
You'll find a place to go to.
クセルクセスにいるのが怖くて逃げた。
Well, that place found you.
すまない。俺が止められなかった。すまない。
So it appears that he was.
すまない、サージェンス。
Return of the King. It appears that he was trying to communicate to the people that are maybe within the soul, but maybe this person specifically at that point,
大
surgeons.
工の棟梁だったサージェンス。
But
宮殿修理によく来ていた。覚えてるか。その息子ドズルは父親を尊敬し、後を継ごうと頑張っていた。
this is the disconnect.
ギダルーシは料理
He
人。
knows them all.
金のない旅人にただで飯を食わせてクビになったことがある。
Good people. Good people.
ズールはどうにもならん極悪人で死刑を待つ身だったが、
This is the thing
最後にお
father
前に一矢報いたいそうだ。
could never think of even.
報いるだと。
今お前の中に侵入した魂たちだよ。
Whoa, how about that? He almost wanted this to happen, right? Kind of goes back to that notion of him expecting this. Giving up his back there.
お前を倒すというただ一つの目的のために
Wow.
俺に協力
Wow.
してくれている。
That's the connection he has with them,
こ
the
こに石を
bond.
持って協力しているだと。ただのエネルギー体が。
He knows them, he respects them. Goosebumps.
確かに荒ぶる魂一人一人を相手にするのは気が狂いそうだったよ。
But
だがこいつらと対話する時間はた
all
っ
the
ぷり
time,
あった。
all the time.
お前のくれたこの死ねない体のおかげでな。
対話をしただと。
そう。それこそお前がしなかったこと。俺は自分の中にいる
Oh my
53
goodness.
万6329
And that's the
人
difference.
全員と対話を終えている。
A cyclone within. Oh my goodness.
生まれたところに帰るんだ。
Dwarf.
フラスコの中の小人、ホムンク
Now
ル
it's
ス
not going to be this easy, of course, but
ある
it's
いが入れ物を壊させてもらう。
jeez.
お前が見下した者たちの思いを知れ。
Yeah, it's not going to be that easy. Wow, the detail.
皮を捨てても生きていけるのか。
進歩してるのは自分たちだけだと思うなよ。
Oh. Oh.
完全な存在になると言っただろう。
It's that eye again from the portal, right? Beautiful transition.
正面から。
自分の城に入るのに裏口から入らねばならぬ理由があるのかね。
King of the castle. Not for him. Oh. Like I said, they're about to get this shit rocked. Oh my god. Oh my god. It puts you in a tricky situation because I am hyped. I'm excited for his return, but look at this as well, right? Oh my god. Oh! It's like a sequence out of a game almost. It feels like he's not even going that hard just yet. It still feels a little bit casual. The one that was in his back pocket? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you poor bastards.
やろう戦車をたった一人で
Oh no, Buccaneer. You're gonna lose that arm, man. This is insane to see Buccaneer get dismantled. Just like that.
どうした主が帰ったのだぞ
Ooh, that voice.
開けたまえ
Okay, Fallman. Is this the last stand?
開けたまえファルマン君
Fallman. Cool.
すみませんマスタング大佐俺ここで死ぬか
Interesting.
俺はまだ戦えるぞ
人はそれを万有と呼ぶのだよ
その通り劇場に任せて吠えたところで得なことなんてありゃしねえ
Oh my goodness.
だけどなんでかねそういうの見捨てる気持ちになれねえんだ
My dude. Rematch. The trilogy fight.
大佐とか戻ってきたとだ盛り返してきやがった
Turn the tide. It's crazy how much spirit they're able to kind of dial into, right? Because of his return.
大佐と閣下無事です生きておられます
Oh man, the emotions this poor lady's going through right now.
閣下は中央司令部にてブリッグズ兵を相当中とのこと
Yeah,
です
to them it's a different type of
すり
news.
つけるか
でも
マスタング大佐を守るためだ
生きてましたかさすがホムンクルスというところですか
Damn
大
straight.
総統の側についたふりをしたのが裏目に出たの
Yeah, now
アームストロング少将を悪者にしなきゃならないなんてここも危なくなってきましたね
そうね
oh, the
僕
score,
たちどう
man.
なるんでしょう
すぐに潰されるかもね
夫人がいてもですか
連中にそんな情があると思う
Maybe you'd be surprised. Interesting perspective to give us. Oh, yes.
久しぶりだなあのまま黙って逃げておればよかったもの
あいにく底なしの強欲なんでね
Oh my god, here it comes. Alright, boys, back up. Let these titans go toe to toe.
どうやって生き残った
Oh, a little bit of a flashback,
目が
perhaps?
良すぎるのでな
Okay. Okay.
瓦礫の中をどこをどう走れば
Right.
逃げられるのか一瞬で判
Oh,
断できる
wow.
のだよやはり年だな 昔ほど体がついてこうわ
This is him now. Not even at his
身
peak,
体
right?
能力がピークじゃないの
これかよ
He's a bad motherfucker.
リンヤオだな
Great.
ボロアパートにかくまってもらって以来かな
I love
久しぶ
that.
りだねファルマン順位
とか言って本当は俺もこいつも個
I
人
love
的な
this,
こだわり
dude.
なんだよな
私の資格に入るか
中の相棒にお前との戦い方を教えてもらったんでね
そうかねならばこうだ
Oh, God. Oh, God. Yeah, I was gonna say maybe let the... Oh. Junko. Oh. Okay, Buccaneer. Oh my god. The sword's gone.
丈夫な腹筋だな
これで得意の剣術は使えまい。無茶すんなバカ野郎。だがよくやった。
やれやれだ。
I'll take these daggers.
それ動かすぞ。はい。
Okay, stage it. Stage it for... Jeez. My god. It's tough. It's tough to see this. Oh. Oh shit. Different colored smoke. They're about to jump out at you. Woo! That score. Yep. A lot of fun. And maybe Fu as well.
何が起きてるんだ。
This goes so hard. Food. Oh. Carnage.
やるなじいさん。サンキュー。助かったぜ。貴様を助けたのではない。若の体を助けたのだ。わしや貴様の腕を持ってきても傷一つつけることのできぬこやつはなんだ。
He's a special person.
だよ。生で見るのは初めてだわい。
And?
こやつか。我が孫娘の腕をちぎり寄った男が。
Oh. Control yourself. Control. Suave. Oh, god damn it. I was so into it, man. Okay, episode 56. Yeah, that's spectacular, isn't it? You know, a thing that Arakawa is essentially a master of, really, is how she kind of maintains that momentum, right? That flow, especially here in this, final conflict. Though, of course, I know this is the anime, and I'm not entirely sure of her role in the actual anime production itself. I mean, I'm sure she had some input, right? In terms of the flow of things and, the pacing of things, adapting from manga to anime. But you really feel this escalating momentum, episode by episode. It's just not letting up, and it's not going to let up, is it? Right till the final moments. But, a thing I really do enjoy about this anime, or this phase of the anime, this final conflict, is the ebb and flow of this situation. It just feels so realistic and grounded, right? Just a few episodes ago, it really felt like, that portion or that side, the side that is trying to take down the Fuhrer, take down the system, change the system, take down Father, all of that, it looked like they're actually in a fantastic standing. It was quite the win for them, right? You see the soldiers from Briggs just sweeping through, devastatingly effective. But then, in this episode, you see all of that kind of felt quite fragile all of a sudden, right? Even down below, Hohenheim faces a bit of a devastating setback as well because, he goes in there and he's legitimately going in there with the intention of taking out Father. This is it. In Hohenheim's mind, this was it. I mean, of course, us, the audience, knows that the dwarf in the flask is not going to be defeated. Not just yet, at least. It's episode 56 out of 64. It's not happening. Of course, there is going to be a setback. And the thing is, I really enjoy that. Them having to be on their back foot and then kind of having to regroup and come again. It's a bit of a reoccurring theme throughout this anime, isn't it? I've seen it time and time again. Kind of having to reassess the situation, pick yourselves up, and go again. Take a different approach. So I love seeing that. So I love seeing the setbacks in this episode as well. Right? Not in the sense that I'm enjoying them kind of, having to face these emotions and, having to face the disappointment of these setbacks. Because, it's more than just disappointment. For a lot of them, it's life and death. It's life and death. And, I think one of the unsung heroes, perhaps, might actually be Fullmetal in this episode. I was so impressed by his courage in that moment. And it appears it wasn't just me. You see that King Bradley took notice as well, right? He was impressed. He was impressed because you see he is so terrified because the person standing across him is supremely terrifying, supremely talented, of course. But, Fullmetal, he was ready. He was ready for that to be his last stand. And you just have to respect that, because at the end of the day, he's just a normal human. And there's these superhumans that are a part of all of this. And there's one standing right in front of him. And it's not just anyone, it is the one. King Bradley, the Fuhrer, Return of the King. The man is not going to take the back door. Hell no. This is my castle. The king does not take the back door to his own castle. And that was some of the imagery that was presented in the last episode. The pan shot I was such a fan of, because that was the feeling. That was the tone of it, right? The king has returned to his castle, and now he's going to take it. He's going to storm the castle. He's going to charge the castle. And his frontal charge is one of the most exhilarating moments of the entire anime. One of the most exciting, right? You see, I was kind of cringing almost a bit, hesitating a bit to call it exhilarating and exciting, because yes, there's a lot of loss of life. And listen, even if it is red shirts, I feel that there is a heft to the loss of life here, because at times it really becomes difficult to watch. And you see that there is a distinct effort made here to make the audience actually take that aspect of it in, that these soldiers are getting caught up in all of this, and they're getting gunned down, cut down in brutal fashion. It puts you in a really tricky situation because, of course, on one end, I'm incredibly excited for the return of King Bradley. Again, it's one of the most exhilarating moments of the entire anime. But then on the flip side, a lot of people are dying. A lot of people are dying. And an argument that I really don't like is, people kind of defending characters sometimes for their actions by kind of putting out this notion of, who cares? These are nameless characters. Who cares? Red shirts, let them die. Come on, that to me that feels like a bit of a cop-out. A lot of Daenerys fans really throw that argument out there. Who cares about these people in King's Landing? They're nameless. You don't know them. You don't care about them. So, don't use that as a point, right? I don't know. Though, of course, that being said, I'm not saying at all that I was a fan of how it was handled, right? The final season of Game of Thrones. No, not at all. But, I was just kind of choosing that specific example because it kind of links to the example I'm trying to make here. And that's one of the things that's been so prominent in this anime, life and the value of life. But yeah, going back to end my point about the ebb and flow of this, I love it. I really enjoy that aspect of it. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of come back now, because now, the tide has turned. King Bradley has come back into the picture and single-handedly just turned the tide, right? He's that effective, that important, that big of a piece in this final conflict, that just his reemergence could completely turn the tide of the battle, of the conflict. Though, of course, by the end of it, you see, the Greeling and Fu find themselves across King Bradley. And, Fu is maybe letting some of that rage get to him, maybe letting some of that rage drive him, perhaps, in the continuation of that fight. So let's see. Hopefully, he doesn't lose control. You see Greed, speaking just a few moments earlier after his grand entrance. Man loves an entrance, doesn't he? Ling also loves an entrance. So, that's something they have in common. And, on that front, I love how it's a united front now, right? The synergy is just beautiful at this point, right? It's so seamless, from Ling to Greed and from Greed to Ling, right? Immediately switches out to Ling the moment Fullmetal refers to him as Ling Yao, right? And then immediately switches back to Greed. So Greeling is a unit at this point. But of course, before Ling does jump into the fight, he maintains that indeed rage, or letting rage drive your actions, is not the smartest thing to do, is it? And then you have Fu at the end there, who's kind of letting the rage get to him. But of course, that being said, that is some exciting setup, right? You've got these two old heads, these impressive supremely talented old heads about to go up against each other. And you see that Fu can hang in there. He can hang in there against or with King Bradley for sure, right? He's able to go toe to toe. But, they're going to need more than that. So it appears they kind of have that now. They have Greeling and Fu potentially double teaming King Bradley. I think, maybe Fu might be allowed to fight him one-on-one for a bit. Maybe he'll make that request of greed. But yeah, I'm really quite excited about this back and forth, the turning of the tide, the ebb and flow. And I'm sure it's going to continue right up until the conclusion of this conflict, the final conflict. That's exciting to me. It is. It kind of almost even feels like a football match or soccer match. Make your pick or take your pick. I mean, all of us fans of football have seen something similar play out on the field, right? A team is going to be pushing, right? They're owning the match, right? Everything's in their favor. And then all of a sudden the other team kind of comes back, pushes them back, pins them in, right? And then it's constant attack after attack. And the other team is kind of defending. You see, there's a lot of defending going on in this one, right? On the back foot. And sometimes you're just caught in that. You just kind of have to take the onslaught head on, right? And survive, defend and survive. And then there's another opening, and then maybe the tide turns and the other team kind of gets to push back now, right? Hits them on the counter. So, I love using, my love of football in my discussions and my analysis for things because I think it is applicable to a lot of these situations, isn't it? And I'm sure fellow fans of football or soccer, again, take your pick. I know, there's people from all over the planet that enjoy anime and this anime specifically as well. So, yeah, of course, in North America, it's called soccer. Now, even though I grew up in Canada, in North America, I'm a little bit more used to saying football because for a long chunk of my life, right, I've been a fan of LFC. That's the English Football Club. So I've been kind of consuming that aspect of it for a long part of my life, right? The channels, the commentary, the interviews, all of that. It's all from England, right? So you kind of get used to it after years, after a decade plus, essentially. But yeah, I digress. I got a little too excited about football there. Let's kind of get back to Fullmetal. And I just mentioned that the reemergence of King Bradley has really, really just turned the tide all of a sudden. At this point, it is a bit of a numbers game, isn't it? Because of just the immense and formidable nature of these homunculi and Father and his forces, right? That a single homunculus can be this devastating and effective in this final conflict. So, let's not forget Al holding up people like Kimberly, holding up people like, or homunculi such as Pride. Al played his part there, right? He delayed Pride. Pride is still, out there right now. Though, of course, Pride can't really do much in this moment anyways, right? Because his container, Salim, is the one he can travel in, right? Unless Pride's in a tunnel. But still, man, I think that fight sequence, Al using the Philosopher's Stone to hold them up, and ultimately, yes, it leads to Kimberly's death. Maybe there's still a bit of a question mark around that, in my mind, at least. But still, ultimately, him holding those two up, right, fighting against them, even though ultimately he is heading towards Central anyways, and Pride is quite happy about that because they need him in Central. I mean, essentially, everyone they need in Central is in Central. I know Izumi Sensei said that she's going to book it out of there, but I doubt she's going to be able to book it out of there. Listen, I've maintained that it is going to get to that phase, right? That Father is going to initiate that. The nationwide transmutation circle. I do think it is going to get to that point. And I also think the counter transmutation circle is going to come into play as well. They set that up. It feels like it was a long time ago at this point. But yeah, they set that up nicely. So it is going to get to those points. And I do expect more of this back and forth. But yeah, it's just so exciting to think about. It really is. It really is. But speaking of Father, or the dwarf in the flask, homunculus, yeah, you see that his final form or true form at this point, or the form that he's kind of been kind of researching perhaps over the decades, hundreds of years, centuries, I suppose. Yeah, you see that he wasn't just sitting there the whole time, much like Hohenheim. He was putting in the time, right? He was putting in the time. and preparing himself for this phase, for this moment, for this possibility. And, his true form, his new form, it feels like a mix of the truth, right? Of course, a taller version of the truth. I mean, it's essentially the dark version of truth, or the truth, isn't it? Until, of course, the eyes kick in, right? Before the eyes kick in, it looked like just the darker version of the truth, right? The big teeth, and again, that figure, right? That body. But then, of course, once the eyes kick in, much more reminiscent of Pride and the original dwarf in the flask. And then, of course, you see the massive eye in the sky, though even though it is underground. Yeah, again, reminiscent of the eye from the Portal of Truth, right? I mean, yeah, the connection there has been quite clear for some time now, right? Going all the way back to the backstory, the iconic and legendary backstory for Hohenheim and the dwarf in the flask. So at this point, his actual physical form is beginning to feel like a rival to the truth. And of course, if he is to become this perfect being, he's going to have to go through this other being, the truth. But yeah, it all adds up. It all makes sense. The things Hohenheim is saying to Father or the dwarf in the last episode. So I was on the right track. He was actually speaking of the souls within him. And of course, that being the big difference, that being the disconnect. Something he believes the dwarf in the flask could never even imagine or could think of doing, right? Because he just does not see them in that manner. He just sees them as sources of energy, essentially, right? That there is no individuality to these souls. But Hohenheim uses his immortality to essentially kind of atone for some of this, even though he didn't ask for any of this in the first place. But you see, his morality on display. And you also see that the brothers get their sense of morality, or at least some of it from their father, right? I'm sure from Trisha as well, but that sense of morality, you've seen it before on display. I've seen it before on display through Ed and Al in how they treat life and people, right? And how they treat the Philosopher's Stone specifically, and the souls within the Philosopher's Stone. So the man actually put in the time and spoke to every single one of those 500,000 plus souls that are a part of him, a part of the Philosopher's Stone that is essentially Hohenheim. Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. And they've alluded to this in the past, right? Again, it feels like it was so long ago at this point. But he'll be speaking to specific people. He'll be saying specific names, right? And there's that moment. He's outside at some location, and he's apologizing by name to each one of these souls that he has to eject out of himself or out of the Philosopher's Stone, and then have them kind of sink into the ground, right? I'm sure that is going to come into play. But yeah, the respect that he had for all these people is immense, and you see that respect has been reciprocated. For sure, right? Even though in the early stages, there's a lot of anger, right? You see in the beginning, in that flashback, yeah, he's trying to talk to this one man, Surgeons, I believe. And of course, understandably, there is a lot of rage, a lot of anger in how their lives were just stolen from them, taken from them in an instant. And you see a lot of that rage and sorrow back around the time Ling and Ed are stuck inside of Gluttony, inside of that failed portal, right? As he does kind of get a first-hand experience of these souls from Envy, right? And there again, really quite reminiscent of his father, really quite apologetic, and full of sorrow for their suffering. And those are the souls of the people from Xerxes, right? A lot of those. But the thing is, even if he is immortal, you have to do the math on this, because essentially he is speaking with hundreds and hundreds of people per day. You have to kind of keep at it every single day, right? And they hinted at that as well before. He was speaking to himself. It almost seemed like he was speaking to himself, right? In his study at one point. But yeah, he's been doing a lot of sorting, a lot of soul searching, in his time as an immortal. But ultimately it didn't quite pan out. And his miscalculation here is kind of underestimating the dwarf in the flask and its ability to grow, right? To plan and to become something even, greater, perhaps. The dwarf in the flask actually calls Hohenheim out. And also, let's kind of focus on the radio station because, of course, something interesting is at play there as well. You see Breda, right? At a moment's notice, takes a stance, takes an approach, right? So you certainly have to give him credit for that, right? Looking at the situation, assessing it at a moment's notice, making a decision that is essentially best for Mustang in the long run, right? And even if it is really quite cold, he has to throw Briggs and Olivier under the bus. Now, of course, you see that Maria Ross and Fury are not the biggest fans of this development. But it also became clear that King Bradley is not in on it yet. He doesn't know about his wife being out there in that location, perhaps. And speaking of miscalculations, I suppose in this case, their miscalculation was that they believed they could take care of King Bradley the Fuhrer that easily. That they could just, also in their defense, a train explosion of that nature, yeah, it's understandable that they might have thought, yeah, he's gone for good. But also there is a bit of a disconnect here as well, isn't there? Because Maria Ross doesn't know about King Bradley's relation with Mrs. Bradley, right? She firmly believes that they're not capable of that type of love or attachment, right? And this is in response to Fury saying, even if his wife is here, right? So that might actually end up saving them. Because if King Bradley finds out that she's there, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how he kind of tells these people to handle that situation. But yeah, I've got to say, the high octane return of King Bradley is right up there. It's right up there as one of the best return moments in any anime that I've experienced, right? It's a blockbuster. I mean, the set pieces, the fight sequences, the animation, right? King Bradley out in the field, his cold fury on display, right? Handling these men and tanks like it's nothing, right? Ruthless. And again, calm and composed. And no point did it feel like he's truly just unleashing everything he has. Like I mentioned, it feels like he's still pretty casual about it. And even then, he is devastatingly effective. He's terrifying. And also, lastly, kind of focusing on the beginning of the episode, the flashback sequence of Hohenheim and the people of Jing, the kind people of Jing coming across Hohenheim in that state out there in the open. You see that immediately the moment they realize, okay, he's still around, he isn't dead. They immediately just start taking care of him. And then right there you have the origins of Hohenheim going to Jing, essentially his new home for that time period, at least, and becoming the Eastern Sage. Or, see, I've been calling him the Eastern Sage, but does that essentially make him the Western Sage? Because from their perspective, he's coming from the West, isn't he? So does that make him the Western? I've been calling him the Eastern Sage, and then the dwarf or father, the Western Sage. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but still, it was really cool to see the origins of that, right? His new home found him. The Jin people found him. So it was great to see that. It was. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments. Give me your thoughts. If you're interested in the next few episodes right now, and perhaps timer-based full length for all of the episodes up until this point, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel. If you're interested, check out the links in the description and the pinned comment. Also links for social media, things like Instagram and Twitter, if that's your thing. But yeah, thank you for joining me once again, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for episode 57.